Well, what's up, everybody? It's Pastor Bryan from Life Chapel. I hope you're having a fantastic day today. I have a special guest with me today, our very own Craig Swan,
Hey guys.
Swan Financial. He is our resident financial guru. Um, the guy we turn to for all questions, finances and budgeting. And I asked Craig to just sit down and share some thoughts today on how to financially be thinking through all things coronavirus. So,
Mm.
Craig, thanks so much for giving us some of your day today.
Yeah, absolutely, Brian. Happy to be here, and happy to help wherever I can. So,
Awesome. Well, for those that don't know you, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do?
yeah. So um, I've been a financial planner for right around 20 years now. I'm endorsed by Dave Ramsey. Been endorsed for about 9 years. My wife and I, we've been following Dave for about 17 years. So kind of where I am is, people are following along those baby steps. I'm here to help them when they get to, baby step 4, when they want to start investing. But, um, you know, I'm here to guide people along the way. So that's kind of me in a nutshell. I'm kind of a nerd.
Well, that's awesome, man. That's awesome. You're very good at what you do, and so we appreciate your insight on this. But let's talk a little bit about. So I've heard Dave Ramsey over the last few weeks mention something about 4 walls, 4 financial walls that everybody needs to be thinking about right now. Can you explain that a little bit to us?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, what Dave's talking about with the 4 walls is just, when everything starts caving in on you, you lose a job, a crisis hits, finances are tight. He wants you to take care of these 4 walls first if you have limited resources. So what he's talking about is, you want to take care of those 4 walls: food, shelter, mortgage, rent, utilities, pay the light bill, keep the lights on, the water, and transportation. Kind of make sure you have a basic vehicle if you need to go somewhere. So those
Okay.
are really those 4 walls that he's talking about.
Okay. And so should we not be spending money on anything other than the 4 walls, or are we just talking about making sure that those things are just really secure and in place?
Good question. You want to make sure those things are secure and in place before you start doing everything else. I mean, some people will have just a limited resource right now where they don't have the resources to go anywhere else. So make sure those 4 walls are taken care of before, you go out to entertainment or anything else.
Okay, that makes sense. And so then after the 4 walls, after we've thought through that and done whatever we needed to do to secure those things just for our optimum safety, and security in a time of uncertainty,
Yeah.
how then do we shift our budget? So I know a lot of us live on a budget. We had a plan for 2020, a
Mm,
budget plan. That's
right.
probably kind of gone up in the air now. So
Absolutely.
how do we need to shift our budget in a time of crisis?
Well, you really want to kind of look at what's your needs and what's your wants. I mean, sometimes some people's pay's been cut. You have more expenses now, so you want to look at what's your needs, what's your wants. Kind of talk to your spouse if you're not married. Talk to a friend or somebody you trust. So really define, what do we really need right now and what do we really want. I think we all know those wants. I mean, it'd be great to have an new 80-inch TV, but is that really a need?
Right.
I mean, that'd be cool, but you don't need that right now.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, that's so good. And what about the emergency fund? I know Carmen and I have that built into our budget. And I've heard that, in a time of uncertainty, the emergency fund needs to be doubled. Is that right?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, things are very uncertain right now. So in times of uncertainty, it's a good idea to double what the normal emergency fund is. And so when we talk about emergency funds, what we're talking about is you want to have between 3 to 6 months, excuse me, of living expenses. So Dave talks about, if both of you are working, you want to have 3 months. If just one of you is working, you want to have 6 months. So you're protected when crisis like this happens. And so you want to make sure you have your living expenses multiple months on that.
That is such good wisdom, Craig. My brother, I was talking to him yesterday. He's self-employed and his business has taken a huge hit in this.
Oh yeah.
But he had 6 months of savings in the bank, and so they're doing okay and weathering this storm. And if he didn't have it, I don't know what they would do.
Right, and that's one of the things that Dave talks about when he talks about financial peace. How do you get that financial peace? By having that safety within sheltered up when the crisis hits the fan.
Yeah. Well, I know one thing that we've talked a lot about in church. Just about every financial series we do, we talk about budgeting at some point in that series, because it is fiscal responsibility to be aware of where your money's going and how much you're spending versus how much you're bringing in. And budget cuts are one of the hardest things for people to do. It's a struggle every time. Different people struggle with different things. But right now, Craig, what are just some examples of things that you think, hey, if you've just been kind of living paycheck to paycheck and you need to set aside some money now for savings because there is a very uncertain future in front of us financially, what are some things that maybe we can think about either dropping out of our budget or somehow getting, maybe finding a different plan and getting that price down? Just kind of talk about that, just to kind of get it in people's minds, some examples of what they can be thinking about.
Sure. Most people don't look at their budget regularly and they don't think about it. Now, since we all have a little more time on our hands and a little more one-on-one time with our spouse, with our friends, with our family, now's a good time to kind of relook at things. I mean, a lot of places where I see people go overboard, where they can cut is, look at your phone. Do you really need that unlimited data plan? Look at your auto and home insurance. A lot of people are overpaying there. Now's a good time to review that with, kind of a independent auto and home insurance agent. Your internet, I mean, just examples of things where you probably haven't looked at it since you bought the policy or the subscribe to it. So it's just a good time to kind of relook at those things. Doesn't take very long, takes 15, 20 minutes. As the commercial says, I mean, you might save 50%. And so
wow,
if you can save that and apply it to your four walls or just give you a little breathing room, just makes a lot of sense right now.
Absolutely. I think too, some people think, well, it's not enough of a savings for me to mess with it. But if you were to save a little bit of money, let's say 5 to 6% on 5 or 6 different things, that's you're saving some money,
Oh yeah, the little things add up, and that's what we're called to do. We're called to be good stewards of what the Lord gives us. So you got to be reminded that it's His money. So and you're stewarding it. So if you can improve, your situation and save on some things and apply it more, to the kingdom finances, just makes a lot of sense right now.
Absolutely. Let's go back to the emergency fund real quick, Craig, because I think that one of the things that has helped me in the past is having that emergency fund in a place where I'm not accessing it. So it's not just in my checking account, so that I look at it and think, I've got an extra $1,200 to spend this month.
Right.
I guess speak to the wisdom of putting that cash in your mattress. Just kidding. We're not doing that, but where do we need to keep? So if we do start saving some money and putting some stuff aside, where does that money need to be?
Yeah, great question. I mean, we are all human. We are all, have tempted with buy stuff. So it's important to, kind of keep part of the emergency fund where you can regularly get it if you need it. Say if, something happens, the transmission on the car goes out, the washer and dryer break down. So you have that money where you can easily get it, but you want to get that other emergency fund. I recommend keeping it in a separate spot so you're not tempted to spend it. So,
Yeah.
I mean, I'm a big fan. If you're comfortable with technology, I like the online banks where you could send it back and forth to your local bank in town. But that way it's kind of out of sight, out of mind.
Yeah. Do you have you may not want to answer this question, but do you have a preference between like a credit union and just a regular bank? Is there a difference?
Oh, absolutely. I do. I love credit unions. So I'm a big fan of credit unions. I mean, the big difference on credit unions is they're nonprofits. So all the profits they make, they'll put back into, the rates they pay to the members. I've noticed they tend to have better service as well, too. So I'm a big fan of, the credit unions and your small local banks. I'm not a fan of the big local banks. I mean, you just see too many stories of how they take advantage of customers.
Sure. Yeah. If you've ever been on the receiving end of that, it's not fun. So
No, and it's sad, and you want your money at a place you trust. So, I mean, there's no blanket statement, but there's some good credit unions, local banks in town, some good online banks. So if anybody has any questions, I'm happy to recommend some that I trust and I would recommend.
that's awesome. Yeah. In the link here on Facebook, we can let people know how to contact you, Craig, and
Cool.
get that insight. And so here's another big question that I think is probably on everybody's mind. So we
Yeah.
just got, some of us, not all of us, but some of us just got stimulus checks from
Sure.
the government to help, in an economic crisis. How do we need to be thinking about those stimulus checks? What do we need to be thinking about spending them on? All of that. Let's talk through that.
Yeah, great question. I mean, it depends upon where you are in your financial situation. So if you're in a good spot, maybe now's the time to be generous. Maybe give it to, the local church, a good charity.
I did not tell him to say that, by the
way. But yeah, you want to be generous. But if you're in a bad spot, I mean, we want to go back to those four walls. So if you're behind on your rent or your mortgage, you want to make sure, you have a good spot to live in and your family's protected. So you have that shelter over you. You have that food. You keep those lights on. You want to make sure you're protected. So if you're in a bad spot, definitely apply to those four walls. If you see a storm is coming on the horizon, which it might, I don't think we're out of the weeds yet. You want to be prepared. So put it in a spot where you're not going to be tempted to spend it. You're not going to be tempted to, buy that latest thing on Amazon. I know we're all spending more time online. Put it in a spot where you're not tempted to spend it. So I think those online savings banks are great. Because you can move that money out of your local checking account and it's kind of more out of sight, out of mind. So when that storm hits, you're taken care of.
Yeah, absolutely. I know the government's hope for us in giving us those checks, I struggle with the word giving.
Right. Not
But
free.
yeah, it's definitely not. They want us to spend it and kind of help the economy. But I think that having those four walls that we talked about out of the gate today in mind is so important, because they're four basic areas of survival. And yeah, I think you're right. We're all human, and we think, oh gosh, we get a free $1,200 check. I'm going to go get that 80-inch 4K TV I've been wanting. It's not the time for that, right?
It's not. I mean, we're not called to be hoarders. God doesn't call us to do that. So
that's a good word.
We're called to be generous and to be prepared. So depending upon your financial situation, you want to make plans for that.
I love that. So 2 ways of thinking about the stimulus is preparation and generosity. That's awesome. I haven't heard that from anybody else. Since the government's been doing that. So that's incredible.
Yeah.
Let's talk about how we're thinking about our financial futures now, because I know one of the big things and one of the big motivators that makes me love Dave Ramsey so much whenever we do an event or financial piece or anything is when we start talking about planning for the future. I've got a vision for what that future needs to look like for Carmen and I and our kids, and I've thought a lot about it. We've talked a lot about it, and we actively budget our money towards it. Now, you get in a situation like this and things could shift a little bit. So how does something like this affect our goals for the future? Is there, new things that we need to be thinking about? Do we need to shelve some ideas that we've got? I mean, let's just talk through that a little bit.
Absolutely. Well, first of all, I mean, it's great that you and Carmen talk about those things. That's where I'd start. A lot of couples and a lot of people don't spend time thinking about their goals and their plans for the future. They're just going along with everyday life. We're slowed down right now. Now's a good time to kind of take a step back, reconnect with your spouse, and talk about, where do we want to be in 5 years, 10 years, 20 years?
That's so good.
What do we want to do for the future? So, I kind of say, I love the quote, a goal without a plan is just a wish. So it's time to end I wish season for many couples. Many couples will go and say, well, I wish we could go to the beach. I wish we could get out of debt. I wish we could retire early. Wish we could send the kids to college. Now's the time to end that season. Now's the time to kind of reconnect, make a plan, and talk about how are we going to get there? What do we need to do now? What plans do we need to make? What changes in the budget do we need to make to get to our goals? So connect as a couple or as an individual and make those plans for the future. Everybody's got extra time now.
Wow, that's exactly right. I think on so many levels, now is a great time to have heart level conversations with your spouse. And of course, finances is one of them. Great time to do that while we're all kind of locked down here and not so busy. Something we've been talking a lot about at church at Life Chapel. Just slowing down and hearing from God. I think it's a great time to hear from your spouse and let them hear from you.
Absolutely. And then take those goals that you come up together individually or as a couple and pray about that.
Yes. So good.
And then take it to the next level and, make a plan, make a goal on how you're going to get there.
That's awesome. And it really is. It's so exciting when you take a wish and you put it down on paper and you make it a plan. The Bible says to take the vision and write it down so that a herald may run with it. We give vision legs when we turn it into a plan. That's so good.
Yeah. It's so powerful when you write that on paper. I mean, there's studies upon studies that back that up. So once you write that plan down, you're just more inclined to accomplish those plans.
Awesome. Well, Craig, is there anything else that you think is important for the folks out there that might be watching us to know just about their finances, or what they can do just to kind of secure their finances in a time of uncertainty? Because we really don't know what's going to happen over the next few months here.
We don't know what's going to happen. I mean, now's a good time, like I said, to kind of make those plans. A good time to study up. So, we're going to be launching Financial Peace University at Life Chapel, hopefully in early fall. Also, Dave Ramsey, you can go through Financial Peace University online. So Dave's offering a free 14-day trial on that, where you can binge watch that. Much better to binge watch that than, Tiger King or whatever the latest craze on Netflix.
That's great.
I mean, you'll get so much more than just doing that. You want to feed your mind with something good. I can also put down a link some books that I'd recommend to read right now. And then also, I mean, I'm totally available as a resource if anybody needs anything. I love to help. And so I'd be happy to, or recommend some other good folks in town who can help too.
That's so awesome, Craig. We really appreciate it. And we will drop those links that you suggest in the comments section on both Facebook and YouTube, where this video is gonna live for a little while. So we really appreciate your time today, your insight. It's always thoughtful and good information. So thank you so much for sharing that with us today.
Absolutely, Bryan. I'm happy to help. I just want to encourage people to just be intentional right now. And if you are in a crisis, talk to folks. I mean, don't try to go through it alone. You have friends, you have family. The church is here to support you. So yes. Let us know how we can help.
So good. So good. Well, thanks again, Craig. And man, I hope you have a great rest of your day, and we'll talk again soon.
Sounds good. Thanks, Pastor.
Absolutely.